So we kind of started thinking about what cultural safety would mean. And in essence, what we came about is that we needed, as a practitioner, to have a good background knowledge of the individuals or individual groups of people in terms of their culture. And Aboriginal group is very, very special in this country. They were the first people who were here, and they had suffered a lot through the colonization and post-colonial policies. Their concepts of health and healing were different, and their health status is quite subpar. It's almost, in some areas, third world country health status. And so we needed this kind of material to be conveyed to the future practitioner so they have some understanding.
As a nurse educator, I was delighted that our School of Nursing could participate in this project last year. I think it is really important that all nursing students receive this content. And the Canadian Association of Schools of Nursing also recognize that this content, that cultural safety education, be a part of the curriculum of undergraduate nursing programs. A real benefit of this program is that the education is provided by Aboriginal preceptors. And by welcoming an Aboriginal preceptor as a guest speaker into our classroom, it allows faculty to model for our students the importance of collaboration between the university community and the Aboriginal community.
So at the university, as part of the curriculum, we do have a class on the Aboriginal population, including the traditional medicines, the traditional healing, as well as kind of the culture in general. And I do find that very, very helpful because in high school, when we learned about the Aboriginal population, it's mostly just the historic part of this is the residential school, this is what happened. But it's really hard to make it meaningful because there lack to context to it. Versus now at part of the program, we do get presenters who are from the population themselves. So I find it very helpful because now when I go out there and I, for example, have to help anyone who is from the Aboriginal population, I feel that I can be more sensitive and more understanding to their needs and really know more about what to anticipate. So that I find very helpful. It also kind of gives me a more open mind because being able to see more and understand more, just as simple as being able to see the smudging ceremony and knowing what the sweat lodge is, I think is really helpful to kind of understand where the population is coming from in terms of their healthcare perspective.
Many people think that the federal government is responsible for Indians and responsible for health care for First Nations people. But the reality is that more First Nations people access provincially funded and provincially provided healthcare services than federal services. The federal government does provide health services on reserve, but those health services are limited, and they provide, for example, nursing stations up in northern and remote communities. But most First Nations people can and do access healthcare services just like anybody else in Ontario. They access hospital services, they access physician services that are all provincially funded in Ontario.
I am a medical resident in family medicine. I'm about to start my second year. In my experience within the education system, in terms of Aboriginal health and Aboriginal issues, First Nations people issues, it was very, very sparse in my secondary school. There was practically no education in regards to the history of Aboriginal peoples. In university, I tended to study sciences, so we really didn't have any exposure in that aspect as well. In medical school, we did have some exposure to some of the Aboriginal health issues, but again, I felt that 1 hour within 3 or 4 years of med school is not sufficient exposure to in order to have healthcare professionals who are able to understand some of where their patients are coming from.
We look at the concept of Aboriginal health and healing. We look at it from the perspective of the medicine wheel teaching. And so we look at it as a combination of 4 aspects: our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual. When one of those is lacking, then sometimes it can collide with what we have in our other aspects or the other 3. So if someone has a mental disorder, you are going to have someone who may eventually not be able to take care of themselves physically, and that causes a breakdown in that structure. So if we're able to help compensate and assist this individual in an area that they may need help in, then we're more able to take care of the other aspects of the medicine wheel teachings and bring balance to that individual.
Overall, Aboriginal people have 2 to 3 times more death, disease, and disability than non-Aboriginal people, and have earlier onset of disease and disability, which is more severe in nature. Again, the list can go on. What's important is that these health inequities do exist and have been caused by colonization, the intergenerational effects of residential school, and years of systemic discrimination. But by understanding that this is the lived experience of many Aboriginal people, being patient and compassionate with Aboriginal patients, and providing care in a culturally safe and effective manner, healthcare providers can begin to address the gaps in the health status that exists between Aboriginal people and non-Aboriginal people, and ultimately work towards closing this gap. And remember, Aboriginal people have many faces, so it's best to utilize the knowledge and skills acquired from the cultural safety in everyday practice.